Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I went from your normal 1000 PSP to a custom PSP with a transparent case. You can get these cases from AliExpress or on Amazon, even though I'm sure they're getting it from a similar location since it takes so long to get here, about a month. And both of these are PSPs that I got from my local flea market. They're both PSP 1000 or flat, or the PSP Fat, as they're known as. And my personal PSP also has some LEDs that I put into it. We're going to be doing that as well. These are reactive with the sound, so they're wired into the speakers. You can see them flashing. We're going to be doing something similar. And this was my personal PSP, but we're going to be working on this one, which is the one that my wife and my daughter share. And I thought it would be cool if we went ahead and gave them a clear pink shell. That's what they've requested. So for this project, you're going to need, for the LEDs, a drill to drill the LEDs. You can do it by hand, that's fine too. I like to use a razor for popping out the screen. Some sort of air compressor. You can use the air compressor can. I'm just trying out these CO2 cans. You're gonna need a soldering iron for doing the bit of wiring, and you're gonna need a tweezer and a file for filing these cases. I also like to use some super glue or some B7000 for gluing in the LEDs and the various components that are loose with this case, such as the LEDs that will go into the triggers and your RF little black shielding here. The yellow is the component for the power switch, and it comes with the little transparent pink analog switch, which I will be swapping out instead for a version that I 3D printed myself because I like it. It has little 3D printed texture on it. This one works just fine. On my original, I have a 3D printed version, as well as a 3D printed ring, and they work just fine. The hardest part for this is just getting the UMD door to work, which if you're using a modded PSP like these are, you won't really have to use unless you want to do something retro, which is fine. And I've also elected to have the same old compartment for the memory card. These, I believe, have 128 gigabyte memory cards. I've already jailbroken this and loaded it up with my daughter's favorite games. So I'm also going to be changing out some buttons. I might keep the bottom either original or change them blue and make the buttons white. The pink PSP does come with pink buttons, but I think the multicolor looks really awesome. I'm also going to be changing out the screen with another original screen, since this original screen has some dead pixels on it. I'm going to be changing it out with an older original screen. I'll also probably change out the circle with this reddish one in the back. And here are the LEDs that I'll be putting in to the PSP. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is disassemble, and maybe even before that, we're going to look through this transparent case and make sure that it's ready to be installed. The problem with these cases is that they are not very well injection molded, so there is quite a bit of flashing that needs to come off or be trimmed in order for this thing to fit really well. And even then, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be some tricks. It took me a long time to get the blue one ready, but you can already see there's some flashing that's going to have to be sanded down and clipped apart, but we'll get through that when the time comes. All right, let's start. Additionally, I forgot to mention, you're gonna need a set of screwdrivers. The transparent housing will come with a cheap set of screwdrivers, but if you want, you use those or you use your own. You just don't want to try to have a lot of slippage, as that will cause some issues. So we don't want to strip the screws as much as we can. Okay, so opening up the case, it's nice, really pretty, huh? Shiny on one side, matte on the other. And we're going to want to go in and make sure that everything is kind of like in alignment. First thing I'll do is I'll take off the door. Door seems to be okay. We do have a bit of flashing here, which if you want, you can take it off the razor blade. This is not that important, so let's move on. We have our retaining bracket, which we'll put to the side. You can check the door, see how well it functions. It's very loose, so I'll probably be replacing this with the original. If you haven't checked already, you can check the on-off switch. The on-off switch tends to get caught about 3/4 of the way to the on position, and it's really because the switch is crashing into the housing and just not allowing for a really smooth transition. So we're going to be shaving that a bit to taper it off. On the blue one, there was quite a bit of flashing on these ejection pin sites here. This one seems to be all right. Let's put that to the side and take a look at the pin here. The pin that is attached to the switch here, we're just going to take this rocker switch. I don't think it's a rocker switch. We're going to take the switch off. Some tweezers here work pretty well. What you want to do is want to grab the switch, squeeze gently, squeeze, and then pull out. And there you go. So where it's crashing really is over here, right on this edge, right on this edge here. And I just want to taper it a bit so that it flows over that silver housing. You really don't need much pressure because these pieces of plastic are quite soft already. Looking around, just making sure that there's no more additional flashing that this thing could get caught on. Just rounding the edges a bit. You will tend to scrape off the paint here, but it's worth it for a better working device. On the housing itself, I'm going to also do a little bit of a taper over the top so those parts meet well and glide over each other. I'll probably do that to this side too. Okay, that is much better. Pretty simple. All right, next thing we can see is this is kind of warped, but that's just because one of the pins is not in. Bring it up and down, and that's seated better. On my previous one, I also had some pins at the bottom here that weren't seated, but for the gray housing, but it seems like this one is just fine. So we just want to go in and see if there's anything that's out of the ordinary. There's a little bit of flashing here. That doesn't seem right. Another probably critical piece is some flush cutters. Another critical tool. You know, these heat like applied threaded inserts can come loose when you're screwing your UMD drive into it. So you do want to be careful, because one of them broke on me in the blue version, and I had to fix it by reheating it, sticking it in, adding some super glue to get it to work well. Also, one of these pins here tends to be too long. It's probably this one over here. This one's gonna need to get clipped further down. Now you can see that it's not quite sitting in well. If you see, it's definitely not sitting in, no matter how you wiggle it in there. And that's probably because you've got some more flashing right there. There's a bit of flashing, that prominent piece. Let's see if we can nip it off. Maybe use a razor blade. You usually want to always cut away from you, but if you're working on something tiny, you'd be very careful. There you go, and that seems to fit much better. So here's where the B7000 comes in pretty well. This is glue for things like jewelry and electronics. It's a little bit gummy, but it's got some decent holding power, and it adds a little bit of water protection. So we're just going to dab a little bit, making sure that this doesn't come out to the top, to the front, because we don't want it poking through. Takes a little while for this stuff to harden up, so you've got a little bit of working time. Sure smells like cement. Drop in our RF shield here. So there are plenty of tutorials online for how to do this, and one of my favorites is from a YouTuber named, I forgot what it was, something Commando. Awesome videos. He does lots of PSP content, and he does some inspirational work. So you can look at his video. I totally recommend it. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe a total of 7 screws holding the exterior on. And there are a couple hidden underneath this sticker, which you can go through or you can peel up a bit. Once you do this, you'll expose the words void, which is a good sign that no one's tampered with this, and you are the first one. In this case, everything is your fault. Okay, take your screwdriver. Going to want to remove these screws. No particular order, but you do want to save these in an order which you will remember. I've got this little pad over here on my desk. It's not too hard to figure out which screws go where, but go ahead and just keep them in a similar order. There are screws that thread into the plastic body, and there's just these machine screws that thread into the metal shielding of the PSP, which are pre-threaded. So you want to make sure that you're not cross-threading. This one at the bottom is a longer machine screw, so keep that in track. There you go. Now that that's done, one thing I forgot to mention is make sure you eject your memory card. This is the adapter for the memory card with, like I said, a 128 gigabyte mini SD card, which is common for your jailbroken PSP. With that being done, you can go ahead and either use your fingers to go along and pop the clips off of the PSP, or use a plastic little remover to go around, and the real ones are up here on top. There we go. We are going to be using some of these membranes, these capacitive membranes. So it's often nice to have, although this seems extremely clean for PSP, it's always nice to have some rubbing alcohol and some Q-tips so you can rub away any debris that there may be. Like I said, we're going to be using the analog, of course. So there's a very important piece that you don't want to lose, and that would be this little silicone piece here, this rubber clear part, which you can purchase if you lose yours, but it's better to avoid that in the first place. Next, we're going to take off this set of buttons at the bottom. There's a simple clip here. I like to use the razor because it's really thin and it can really get in between the slots, but you definitely want to make sure you don't accidentally hit the screen. There you go. Sometimes there could be a little adhesive from other parts leaking in, or even sticky like soda or stuff that people have spilled into it. Just fold the buttons up and really carefully with either a tweezer or your fingernail flip the door for the ribbon cable up and just pull out the button set and lay that off to your side. Next, what we're going to do is remove the screen. Like I said before, the screen has some dead pixels, so we're going to go ahead and swap it out for a different original screen, which are hard to find, so I'm glad that I have one. These screens can be a little bit difficult to take out, but what you just want to do is you want to attack those clips here. There's one clip on each corner, but starting from the corner, and again, I like to use a razor blade so I can get in between here. Just work it out, and on the other side, slip it in and work it out. Twist it out. If I chip these blades, I really don't care that much. I'll just use the chipped one. There's a little bit of adhesive keeping this guy in. What you want to do, just wiggle it loose nice and slowly. You can sometimes use a heat gun to do this, but with some patience, there's no need. There are a couple of ribbon cables holding on the screen, so once you get this thing loose, stuck again, just fold it forward toward you, and here you'll see 2 ribbon cables. Now these guys, of course, you got to be careful with this long one especially. I like to just use my thumb, flip over, and there you go. And then there's another one that flips in the opposite direction toward you. You can use a tweezer to pull them out, or you can just do it yourself. This one tends to be easy. There you go. And that's how you get your original screen off. Set that off to the side because that's still useful for other cases. Okay, so what we'll do next is remove the screws holding this shielding. This shielding is pretty heavy, and it's what gives the PSP 1000 a lot of its bulk and sturdiness. So once again, we're gonna go ahead and take it apart and set them off to the side. This is where I had an issue with the blue PSP I just showed you, where this screw was rotating a lot. It was just rotating and wouldn't tighten up. And that is because this screw, yes, this screw coincides with this threaded insert. Now this brass threaded insert just started spinning because it had stripped out of its casing. And the issue with that is that you can't get a good grip, and there is a second machine screw from the UMD side that screws into it. So it's kind of critical to have that one sturdy. And so I had to repair it myself to get it to work. And even then, I did not tighten it fully. It tightened enough, but it did not tighten fully. This black machine screw is one of a kind, so make sure you don't lose that one. That one is long. Can't replace that one. And the one that got stripped last time, there it is. The shielding, I forgot to mention, is attached to the UMD door. So you want to open up the UMD door so you can remove the shielding. There you go. Just pull it straight out. There's the UMD door bracket. But you can go ahead and take off your left and right trigger. And then also the capacitive membranes that hold this one in. There's just a clip here. Shouldn't need much pressure, should just come out. There you go. That's for the right side. And this one for the left side should also just pop up with some little clips holding it in place. Next, what we'll do is we'll take off the D-pad and the buttons. And for that, we're going to go to this membrane, and sometimes there's a little bit of adhesive here. Just peel it up ever so gently. There you go. And just bring that forward. Okay. Could take a little effort, but that is all right. Next thing we'll do is we'll take off the D-pad by unscrewing this left side screw, and once again saving it. Fold that D-pad over, revealing the ribbon cable switch, which again, just use your fingernail or your tweezer, flip it up a little bit, pull straight out. Leave that off to the side. Now for the buttons, there are two clips holding it in place. There's one here at the top, one here at the bottom. What I'd like to do is just pull at the bottom one. And it should just pop out. Perhaps if you are smart, go ahead and open the ribbon cable and make sure that the ribbon cable isn't going to be interfered with. There you go. This is a good time to clean the cable or the buttons if you need to. Like I said before, this seems to be a very clean PSP. Got a little bit of something here, but it's no big deal. Okay, next we can take off the charging port. This little piece of tape that's holding cable for the charging port. You want to be really careful because this plug can come apart quite easily. So all we're going to do is just leave it like that. Next, we'll take the wire that the antenna leads to, noting how it lays on over the motherboard and through these channels. Just go ahead and remove that antenna and lay it off to the side. Right now we can't get to the back of it, so we'll just leave it just like that. Okay, so from here, we're going to remove the speakers and the ribbon cable for the UMD. Ribbon cable for the UMD, you're gonna grab these black pins and pull them straight toward that UMD optical sensor thing. And go ahead and pull it straight out, easy. For the speakers, they're under these pieces of tape. So go ahead and just expose the wire. These are very delicate plugs, so you're gonna want to be super careful with how you pull them out. What I do is I just grab it with my tweezer, and instead of pulling it out, because you could do that, you don't want to do that because you'll crimp the wires, just grab it and rock it left to right, making sure you don't slip off. Just rock it. Until it pops out. You see how tiny they are? Same thing with the other side. Just rock it back and forth. Make sure you don't slip. And then just get it out of the way. Noting how they run, so later you can attach them again. Now these speakers are where you're going to be wiring your LEDs if you're doing so. So what I like to do is from each side, just pry out very slowly. You don't want to puncture these speakers. There you go. Pulling these guys straight out. There's some debris. It's nice to have a brush laying around where we can brush these, which we will do later. We can take out this one screw. And the screw holding the motherboard in place. Take that guy out. There is a ribbon cable here, which is for the UMD as well. Just flip it over and pull it out. And now you should be good to remove the motherboard. To remove the motherboard, you want to be careful, as you can break your switch here. Just tilt it out toward the charger and pull out. There will be a connector to a subboard right there. So you want to make sure that you try to lift it out as vertically as possible. Over here, you'll see some tiny little connections that you have to short if you are doing an IPS screen. And that is not for this video, so we don't have to do that. Not yet, at least. Here's a screw. Okay, to take the shielding off, it'll be useful to take off the retainer for the memory card. Lay that off to the side. Okay, now you should be able to easily remove some more shielding. Put that off to the side. Now the memory subboard should just pop out, and there you'll see your connecting to the connection to your antenna. Again, lay that off to the side. That looks good. And if it falls out by accident, you remember how this retainer goes as well. You'll need that in your new housing. If you're going to reuse the memory card cover like we are, you can go ahead and remove it. This one is very tight. I will use something I can get more leverage on. You might ask me, why aren't you using this screwdriver to begin with? Well, some of these holes are so deep, they don't reach, and I have to use a thinner screwdriver. Okay, we'll keep that off to the side. Just like to keep that screw in there. And remove this guy. So to remove the UMD, we'll need to flip this over and get this door cover off. Just like that. And when it doesn't come all the way out, do it again. Until it pops out. Angle it out for the next side. And there you should have it removed with your spring. Just got these 4 screws, which have these silicone bumpers on them. You're gonna reuse those, so try not to damage them. I don't see the bumpers being, these insulating pads being in too bad of a condition. I'm gonna turn it around and just gently push it out. Really nice and slow so you don't rip those silicone bumpers. If the bumper does not come off with the UMD, no worries. Just grab them, pull them off carefully as they can rip in the center, and reattach them. Like so. Now we're pretty much done. We just need to get our spring out, which can be done just by pulling it out either by the tail lifting it up, and not letting it fly away. Okay. Installing it is easier, I promise. Put that to the side. And there you go. You have completely disassembled your PSP. Besides our buttons and our buttons and our stick, which you can just unscrew and set to the side. And once again, it is really important that you don't lose that silicone membrane that makes contact with the joystick, because that's where it makes contact. And again, here we can do some cleanup, which we will once we install this. It also has this little ring, which you're going to need to save as well. And from here, we can take off the membranes if we're going to reuse them, like so. And then get your alcohol, and we'll clean them up as we install the new shell. Make note that the standoff for the memory card, retainer, is quite low, and that's the one that we need to trim here with. Now, before we do the assembly, I want to go ahead and glue these LEDs into the triggers, because like I said, they're going to take a while to be workable, and so I don't want to wait for them while I'm assembling, in the middle of assembling the PSP right together. So the way we're going to do this is by creating a little dimple, pre-drilling by hand, pre-drilling a little dimple just with our screwdriver, so that when we use our drill, we're not slipping around. That should be good. We've got a little drill. If you don't have an electric drill, you can totally do this with a hand pump drill, or even by screwing it in with either the tip of the screw gun, your tip of the Phillips head, or just by hand. So I'm going to go ahead and do it at an angle until I'm about 2 or 3 millimeters in. About 2. And then we're going to test to see if that drill bit size is big enough, which it seems like it is just fine. And again, for the right trigger. And that should allow for the light refraction around the trigger. Just fine. Sticking it in, just leaving it as is to cure. Same thing with the left trigger. Filling in the void with glue. Make sure your LED is facing forward. Getting it in there and leaving it to cure. While the trigger's dry, we're going to drill another hole into the D-pad so that we can have our next LED poking out from the bottom. This one is nice and easy because there's a guide built in for you already. Just try to go straight as possible, not drilling into the buttons. So, like I said, we're going to change this ring to a different color. But right now, we can just go ahead and take it apart. I'm using the same technique as before. I like using a razor blade. Just pry out the door. And it should come out pretty easily. Leave that off to the side. And basically, we're going to do things in reverse. Let's get this spring in. All you gotta do is twist it into position. Pull it over. Take the door. Drop it into the frame. And gently press it into position. There we go. Okay, next we'll do is turn this around. So we've got a little bit of flashing, probably somewhat blocking us. Perhaps you want to keep the clip out while you try this. So you can tell here we're having a lot of trouble just trying to get this in. And so we're gonna go ahead and try to do some filing. I think the only file I got right now is this one. So we're gonna have to make this work. I'm gonna point it in this direction so that I don't get any flakes inside. See if we can get in there. But as you see, I'm kind of getting blocked by the standoff, the side of the standoff. So we're gonna have to go in and clip it. Again, your flush cutters are gonna be key here, but I've got a little bit over here that is just a little bit too high, and I can't quite get in there. So I'm gonna clip as best as I can. Don't want to break the pin that's gonna hold anything in, but I like to use my razor blade too to clean it up a bit. We're doing a little better. Right, perfect. You see, so all we had to do really was to adjust that standoff. While we're here though, before I put that in permanently, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that standoff down to match the original. One more time so you can see. This standoff here is shorter, it's flush to the support that connects to the pin. This one is much longer, it goes all the way to the top. And that's not gonna be good, so I'm gonna go ahead and clip that down. Trying not to shatter the plastic, so I'm gonna take it easy. Only gonna cut it halfway first, and then keep going across it. And that should be good. But first I think I wanna go ahead and change out the memory card cover. So unscrew it. So right now is when you might as well start figuring out your LEDs. What I like to do is to route them around. The left one will be wrapped around the edge. The right one will be wrapped through the button pads. And I like to have the button pads already popped in. Starting with our triggers, we're going to go down and we're going to loosely measure where we want it, giving yourself a tiny bit of slack. So around here is where you're going to want it. I'm going to clip both of them. And you can save the extra wire for later in case you need some more. Same thing with the left. The left we're going to wrap around the edge of the PSP down to the speaker port and just a little bit longer just in case. So around there is where we're going to need it. Clip it. We're going to have this LED just hanging around right here. So this one's going to be really short. Just like that. Same for the other. We're just going to have it hanging around in this compartment, which means we're going to have to cut this part to have our LEDs routed to the speaker. So once again, this one's going to be short. And we're also going to go ahead and clip to make a door. We need a passageway for the LEDs. So you make your snips, and then you can just bend left and right until the thing snaps off. That's more than enough. And then what I like to do is get all the LEDs together, tinge them, make sure they're bound, and then tinge them so that we can solder pretty cleanly onto the speakers. There are ways to do this solderless, but this is really not difficult to be done with solder. Highly recommended. Again, you just want to map out what your passage is going to be. It's going to be right there in the center. It's going to come down and then to the speakers, and then we have a little bit extra just in case. So we're going to want it right about there. So now you want to strip everything. You can do so with whatever tool you like the best. I like to use a razor blade. Razor blade just to kind of like mark it. Be careful not to cut yourself. And you always give yourself a little bit more for this reason. Just be careful. Also like to use the clear silicone putty because it's clear. using a soft brush, we'll just brush this thing clean. Trying to route this one like so. Yay, finally. Start taping things up together. Just in case we cause any shorting. Just gonna put a little cap down. Next we'll insert the plugs back in for the speakers. Go ahead and put our trigger buttons back on, just clean them up with a little bit of alcohol. Should be able to finally put our shielding back on. Trying to remember where everything goes. Got a little machine screw here. This is the one that screws into the UMD. And you've got a large screw, plastic screw. Another plastic screw. Another shielding. Let's go ahead and clean the capacitive membranes now. Guess we're good. Actually, you know what I didn't do? I didn't put this thing in. These can be tricky. Have to make sure the wings are in. And the spring, one side in, other side bend. And you kind of just have to wiggle it in until it finally engages with the hole it's supposed to. So after about an hour of dealing with it, I finally got the UMD door to fit. Getting that hinge in is notoriously difficult, but this looks good. There we go. Let's pop the battery in and see if this thing works. And here we are. We're finally done. Turns on. We've got our games in. All the 6 LEDs work. We'll turn on the lights. Blue LEDs that you wanted. Some at the bottom, green in the middle. And looks like our games are working. We'll just attach to the wrist strap and then we're done. What do you guys think? You like the build? Would you do it? I love the pink, I love the blue. I'm pretty sure my daughter will be happy. Would you do it for your wife, your girlfriend, your kid? What do you think? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.